All right, let's dive right in. We're about to unpack a pretty seismic shift in how business is done in Europe, a change that's forcing supply chains all over the world to completely rethink everything. And right at the center of it is some incredible hardware designed not just to deal with this new reality, but to actually turn it into an advantage.
So here's the big question, and it's not a small one. We're talking about a multi-trillion-dollar problem for anyone who wants to sell goods in the EU. How on earth can you give a product its own unforgeable identity? One that can prove its entire journey, from the moment it's a raw material to when it ends up in a customer's hands.
To really get why this is such a huge deal, you've got to look at where it's all coming from. The European Union has rolled out 3 incredibly powerful new mandates, and they're completely rewriting the rulebook for manufacturing and for, just tracking stuff.
Okay, so these are the big 3. You've got the CRMA, the Critical Raw Materials Act, then there's the ESPR, which is the Eco-Design for Sustainable Products Regulation, and finally, the DPP, the Digital Product Passport. What these do together is create this new legal world that demands just radical transparency. Companies now have to prove the entire life story of their products, from where they came from to their impact on the environment.
And here's the problem, right? Our current systems, they're just not built for this. Paper certificates, you can fake those. QR codes, easy to clone. And digital records, well, we all know how vulnerable they are to hacking. The real flaw, the deep down issue, is that the proof is totally separate from the product itself. And that separation creates this massive, massive security gap.
So, how do you build trust that can't be broken in a world that's full of fakes? You have to move past the paper. You have to move past the pixels. You have to anchor that trust in the laws of physics.
And this, right here, this is the core idea. It's a total shift in thinking. To get to a place of absolute trust, the physical thing itself has to be the source of truth. The asset isn't just some product anymore. It's the key to its own identity, an identity that you can't copy and you can't separate from it.
So that brings us to the solution from a company called LuxVoid, and their technology is called monolithic encapsulation. What it is this industrial process that literally fuses an asset with its digital identity so they can never, ever be separated.
All right, so let's break down how this actually works, because it's pretty wild. This is not about slapping a sticker on a box. No, this is a deep industrial process that turns a regular object into a secure, smart asset.
This 4-step fusion process is really the secret sauce. First, the metal itself is chemically prepped. Then, a secure cryptographic chip gets embedded right onto it. A special stealth layer goes over that to hide it, and finally, the whole thing is fused inside this tamper-proof resin dome. The result is, it's not a product inside a package. It's one single solid object, where the physical and the digital are literally the same thing. It's like giving the object its own unforgeable birth certificate, baked right in from the start.
And you can really see that fusion happening here. On one side, you've got the raw material, and on the other, you've got this complex circuitry. Monolithic encapsulation just bonds them together, giving that physical asset its own unforgeable digital soul.
And the security here is it's on another level. It really is a fortress. If you try to physically pry the chip out, the antenna just pulverizes itself. If you try to use chemicals to dissolve the resin, well, the resin actually becomes a corrosive agent and it destroys the chip. And on top of all that, you have a unique visual birthmark in the resin swirl, plus a forensic UV DNA fingerprint. It's just multiple, redundant layers of unforgeable proof.
Okay, so we've got this incredibly secure tech. Now let's connect it all the way back to those EU regulations we started with. How does this kind of hardware-enforced truth actually meet their demands?
Let's start with the Critical Raw Materials Act. The EU is basically saying, hey, we need you to prove that at least 10% of your most important materials are actually sourced from right here inside the EU. And for that, you need hard, undeniable proof of where something came from.
And here's how LuxVoid cracks that problem. Their manufacturing as a service, or MaaS, plugs this tech right into the production line. What that does is create an immutable, digitally verifiable proof of origin the second the material is processed. This makes meeting that 10% rule pretty much automatic and totally auditable.
So next up, you have the ESPR and DPP mandates. These rules basically say that almost every single product needs to come with a full digital product passport. It needs to tell its whole life story, where it came from, what it's made of, its environmental impact, even how to recycle it, the whole shebang.
LuxVoid's solution here is just so elegant. Because the asset's identity is physically fused to it, the asset is its own digital product passport. Its entire history is securely locked inside it, ready to be accessed whenever you need it. There's no separate database to worry about, nothing to hack or lose. It's just there.
Okay, so let's look at the final piece of this whole puzzle. How this completely changes the game for people like customs agents, the folks on the front lines at the border.
This is all delivered through what they call verification as a service, or BaaS, and it enables this incredible concept, trust without touching. It means an agent can cryptographically check a shipment's contents, its origin, its authenticity, without ever opening the box. They just interact with the asset's digital signal. It's fast, it's super secure, and it respects privacy.
So the main point here, the big takeaway, is that this system completely flips the model of trust on its head. A customs agent doesn't have to trust the paperwork that comes with the shipment anymore. They can trust the unforgeable physics of the assets inside it. And that just wipes out the risk of counterfeit goods and fake documents.
You know, we started this explainer talking about this massive compliance challenge, right? This set of regulations that just seemed like a huge weight on businesses all over the world. But as we've seen, when you have the right technology, that whole story starts to change.
These mandates, they stop being just a cost of doing business. They actually become a competitive advantage. I mean, companies using this kind of hardware-enforced proof can now demonstrate with absolute certainty the authenticity, the sustainability, and the ethical origins of their products. That's a level of trust that was just never possible before.
And this all leads us to this one final, pretty profound question. This kind of tech changes compliance from just a cost into a real measure of value. So what happens to our world when authenticity is no longer just a claim you make on a piece of paper, but it's an actual physical property of the object itself?